I don't scare easy. 20 years behind the wheel, I've hauled loads through ice storms, dodged deer on mountain passes, even slept in a rig while a tornado tore through a field less than a mile away. But tonight I can't stop, shaking. I'm sitting in this rundown diner off Route 117. You know the one. Middle of nowhere. Open all night. Coffee tastes like burnt tires. My hands haven't let go of this mug in 20 minutes, and I swear I can still smell him. That mix of desert rot and something older. Something wrong. I need to tell someone before I lose my mind. Maybe if I say it out loud, it'll make sense. Maybe you'll believe me. It started a few weeks ago, right around mile marker 57. I was running behind on a haul to Phoenix, middle of the night. No traffic, not even coyotes. That's when I saw him, just standing there in the dark. No thumb, out. No bags, just waiting. I should have kept going. Every instinct told me to, but I didn't. I pulled over. Let him in. He got into my truck, but I don't think he ever got out. It was about 3:07 a.m. when I hit that long, dead stretch of Route 117. You know the kind. No signs, no lights, just blacktop and desert stretching out like a bad dream. I was running on caffeine and classic rock, windows cracked to keep the cold desert air biting my face so I wouldn't nod off. I remember glancing at the clock, thinking I'd pull off in an hour or so and catch some shut-eye. That was before I saw him. He was just there, standing by mile marker 57, not walking, not hitching, just standing. Pale skin, dark clothes, arms stiff at his sides. He wasn't looking at me either. He was staring straight ahead, like he was waiting for something to come from the road instead of trying to get away from it. I passed him without slowing down, but maybe a quarter mile later, something in my chest tugged like a hook behind my ribs. I told myself I'd regret it if I didn't check. Maybe he was hurt. Maybe he was lost. That's how I justified it. Reversed. He didn't move when I rolled down the window, just turned his head slow and leaned in. "You going far?" he asked, voice dry like the wind scraping dead leaves. I nodded and unlocked the door. The second he climbed in, the cab got colder, not from the air outside, I mean bone-deep cold. He sat with his hands on his knees, not speaking, not looking at me, just staring down at the dashboard. I tried making small talk, where you headed, rough night, need water, but he didn't bite. Just nodded now and then, always keeping his eyes low like he was watching something I couldn't see. About 15 minutes in, I noticed it. That smell. It wasn't sweat or dirt. It was musty, like wet wood that's been sitting in a basement too long. And something else, sour and metallic, like rusted blood. I cranked the air vents, but it didn't help. It felt like the smell was coming from inside the truck. That's when I looked at him again and realized something that still makes my skin crawl. He hadn't blinked once. Not once since he got in. About an hour later, I pulled into this dusty gas station, one of those old desert ones with flickering overhead lights and a single pump that probably hadn't passed inspection since the 90s. I needed fuel, and more than that, I needed air. Something about having him in the cab made my skin itch, like my body knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. I glanced at him before stepping out. "Won't be long. Just stay put." He didn't answer, didn't move, just kept staring at the dashboard like it held secrets. I shut the door and walked inside, grabbed some coffee, used the restroom, tried to shake this weird fog settling behind my eyes. The clerk didn't say a word to me, just watched me like I'd grown horns. When I got back outside, my cab was empty. Passenger door still closed, no footprints in the dirt. I circled the truck, checked under the chassis, even peeked in the trailer, just to be sure, nothing. Gone. I started to wonder if I'd imagined the whole thing. Maybe the desert and the insomnia were finally getting to me. I mean, people see things on these roads all the time, right? I climbed back in, slammed the door, turned the key. Engine roared to life. I didn't even look toward the passenger seat. I figured I'd drive to the next rest stop, crash for a few hours and laugh about the whole thing in the morning. But then the interior light flicked on, And he was there, sitting right where I'd left him, hands on his knees, same blank stare. I hadn't heard the door open. No slam, no creak, nothing. 1 second the seat was empty, and the next, he was just there. I froze, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Then he turned his head, slow, mechanical, until he was looking right at me. His eyes were black, deeper than the night outside. And then he spoke. "Don't leave the lights off again." His voice wasn't normal. It came in layers, like two men speaking in perfect unison, one whispering beneath the other. I didn't ask what he meant. I just turned the lights back on and drove. I kept driving, more out of fear than direction. The road stretched on endlessly, just yellow lines flickering under the headlights and black void on either side. The hitchhiker hadn't said another word since that last bone-chilling sentence. He just sat there, unmoving, his face half-shadowed by the dash lights. I didn't dare look at him directly again, so I stared forward like my life depended on it. After a while, the silence got unbearable. I needed noise, normal noise. Something human. I flipped on the CB radio, hoping to catch chatter from another rig or maybe just static to fill the void. It crackled for a moment, then hissed, then suddenly burst to life with a garbled voice. "Get rid of him before mile 70. Then nothing. Just static. I blinked, leaned toward the mic. "Breaker, breaker. Did someone just say something?" "Say again?" I turned the dial, adjusted frequency, but the CB was dead, not even a hum. Just cold silence. I looked to the right to ask if he'd heard it, and caught a glimpse of the passenger mirror. What I saw made my stomach flip. In the mirror, his face wasn't right. It was longer, sunken, eyes too wide, mouth slightly open, like he was silently screaming. But when I glanced at the seat itself, he looked normal, pale, quiet, still. That was the first time I seriously considered abandoning my rig. Then he started humming. Just soft at first, barely audible over the rumble of the road. An old lullaby, one I swear my grandma used to sing, but twisted, off-key, like it had forgotten itself over the years. The kind of tune that sinks into your spine and rots there. My grip tightened on the wheel. I glanced at the GPS. Nothing around for 30 miles. Mile 68 coming up. My mouth was dry. I pushed harder on the gas, hoping to outrun something I didn't understand. That's when he turned to me, slow, that same unnatural tilt of the head, and said, "You missed the turn." His voice was calm. Too calm. "There wasn't any turn," I muttered, but something inside me wasn't so sure anymore. By the time I reached the next rest area, I was running on pure adrenaline and whatever scraps of sanity I had left. The sign had been rusted out and half bent, but I took the exit anyway. My GPS didn't even register it. No map, no name, just a worn pull-off surrounded by sagebrush and silence. There were no lights, not on the lot, not in the building, the vending. Machines were dark and smashed in, glass scattered like ice across the pavement. The place looked abandoned, like it had been forgotten for years. But it wasn't just empty. It felt wrong, like the kind of place the world tries to erase. I killed the engine and stepped out, needing air, needing space. The hitchhiker stayed, put. Or so I thought. I walked around the back of the rig trying to think. How do you make a man leave when he might not even be a man at all? How do you fight something you can't name? That's when I noticed the tire tracks, deep ruts trailing off into the sand beyond the lot. They didn't look fresh, but something about them pulled at me. I followed them on foot, past the scrub brush and into the dunes. About 50 yards out, I saw it. A wrecked semi. Half buried in sand, cab crushed inward like a fist had slammed it down. The trailer had rotted open, revealing twisted metal and dry bone. The driver's side door was ajar, and inside, a body. Or what was left of one. Sun-bleached bones curled, in the seat like it had died waiting. Then I saw the writing, scrawled in smeared, rusty red across the inside of the door. My name. Not a coincidence. Not a trick of the light. It was my name. I stumbled back, legs barely working. I ran. Tripped twice. Didn't care. When I got back to the lot, I stopped dead. The hitchhiker wasn't in the truck anymore. He was standing outside, right where I'd been, arms at his sides, face lit by moonlight. He smiled. "You saw it," he said. "You were meant to." And for the first time I knew. I hadn't picked him up. He'd been waiting for me. I didn't think. I just floored it. Gravel spat from my tires as I tore out of that rest stop like hell was at my heels. Maybe it was. I didn't look at the passenger seat. Didn't breathe. Just kept my eyes locked on the road and my foot, heavy on the gas. The CB crackled behind me. Faint voices trying to break through, but I twisted the knob until it was silent. My phone started buzzing. Unknown numbers, then familiar ones. My dispatcher, my brother, even my ex-wife. I let it ring. None of them could help me now. I saw flashing lights in my rear view. A patrol car. Relief surged through me. Until it blinked once and vanished. No turnoff, no siren, just gone. That was when I decided to dump the rig. I pulled into a small highway station about an hour later, barely functioning. One pump, one streetlight. I threw the truck in park, grabbed my bag and ran. Left the keys in the ignition, engine still running. I didn't care. I was done. I stood by the road, hand out, breath hitching. A beat-up Ford. Pickup slowed down, its lights washing over me. The driver leaned over and waved me in. "Need a lift?" I nodded, didn't even ask where. Just wanted away. I jogged toward the truck, then froze. In the back, through the grimy glass, sat the hitchhiker, same pale skin, same hollow eyes. Just sitting there, waiting. I backed away, shaking my head. The driver called out again, but I was already running in the other direction. I didn't stop until I was back at the pump station, heart jackhammering against my ribs. Another car pulled up minutes later. A family, mom, dad, kid asleep in the back. They didn't see anything in their back seat when I tried to warn them, but I did. He was there, smiling, watching me. It didn't matter what I did, where I went. Every vehicle I approached, he was already in it, like he was always a step ahead. Or maybe I was the one falling behind. I wasn't driving him. He was riding me. Always had been, and now he wasn't letting go. I'm back where I started. This lonely diner off Route 117, cup of burnt coffee going cold in my hands. The place is almost empty, just a couple truckers scattered in booths, lost in their own ghosts. I haven't slept right since that night. Every time I close my eyes, I hear that humming, that lullaby, that voice. I've switched rigs, switched routes, switched states, doesn't matter. Every truck I get into, he's there. Sometimes in the mirror, sometimes in the sleeper. Sometimes I just smell him before I see him. That desert rot, like something dead beneath the sand. Don't know what he is. Spirit? Curse? Some desert thing that latches onto broken people? All I know is once I let him in, he never left. And I don't think he ever will. I toss a few crumpled bills on the table and get up to leave. As I pass the counter, the waitress frowns at me. "Hey, trucker," she says, squinting past me toward the window. "Didn't you say you were alone?" I don't answer. Outside, in the passenger seat of my truck, someone's sitting, pale, still, smiling. He's always there, just waiting for the next long road. If I don't make it through tonight, someone needs to know what came through my CB radio. I'm sitting alone at a rest stop off I-15, truck engine cooling behind me, air thick with the kind of silence that makes your skin itch. I've been driving, long hauls for 15 years, seen my share of weird stuff on the road. But nothing like this. Nothing that followed me. It started a week ago. Just a scratchy whisper on Channel 19. I thought it was interference, solar flares, maybe some bored kids playing around with a ham setup. But then it said my name. Not just my handle. My real name. The one I haven't used on the air since '09. That voice wasn't human. Too deep, too slow, like something trying to pretend it was. Then it started naming things. My mom's maiden name, the exact time my tire blew outside Flagstaff, the color of the jacket I was wearing. Things nobody should know. Not unless they were watching. I killed the radio after that. Pulled the fuse. Didn't matter. It still talks to me. Still knows me. And tonight, I think it wants me to answer back. It was just past 2 a.m. when I rolled into that flat stretch of Utah highway. Nothing but open desert. No headlights in either direction. The kind of silence that presses against your skull. I'd been hauling pallets for a warehouse gig. Just another overnighter. But the caffeine wasn't cutting it. So I did what I usually do to stay sharp. Started flipping through CB channels, hoping for some chatter. Most were dead air. A few muffled convoys talking about speed traps and diner coffee. But then I hit channel 29 static. Just plain white noise. I was about to flip off it when I heard it, faint like a whisper riding the signal. Then clear as a bell. Eddie. I froze. That's my name. Not my handle. My real name. Then it said, Margaret. That's my mom's name. Nobody on the road would know that. Nobody. And then it said, 29. I stared at the CB, waiting for more. It went silent. Just static again. I told myself it was a prank. Maybe some hacker screwing with truckers. But then, 29 miles later, I blew a front tire. Swerved hard. Barely kept it upright. Almost slammed into the guardrail near an exit I didn't recognize. Doyle Springs. Only thing is, there is no Doyle Springs in Utah. Not on any map I've checked. That's when it clicked. The voice hadn't just said 29. It had predicted it. I didn't sleep when I finally stopped that night. My head was buzzing, trying to logic my way out of it. Electrical interference, sleep deprivation, an overactive imagination. But when I replayed the radio on my phone recorder, there was nothing. Just silence. No static. No voice. The CB's been acting weird ever since. Flipping to that same channel, on its own. Glitching out like it's being overridden. I keep telling myself I'm just tired. But deep down, I knew something had latched on. Something using the airwaves like a fishing line. And I'd just taken the bait. 3 nights later, I was cutting through a mountain pass east of Cedar City. Tight curves, cold wind, and a fog so thick it felt like the world just ended outside the beams of my headlights. I'd killed the CB since that first night. Even yanked the power cord from the back, just to be sure. But around midnight, it clicked on by itself. Didn't touch a thing. Just that familiar click hiss like someone holding down the mic on the other end. Then came the voice. Not the one from before. This one was deeper, layered, like multiple voices speaking in unison. No modulation, no emotion. It didn't sound through the speaker, it sounded inside my skull. You are going to kill someone. I nearly swerved then and there. I reached for the mic, wasn't even plugged in. Still the channel stayed open. Then I heard something that made my blood run cold. It was my own voice, distorted and slow, repeating the same phrase. You are going to kill someone. I gritted my teeth, eyes locked on the road. Shut up, I whispered. You're not real. Not 2 minutes later, a deer exploded out of the fog. I slammed the brakes, tires screeching. The rig jackknifed just shy of the ditch. My heart was still in my throat when headlights appeared behind me. Too fast. A sedan skidded, spun, slammed into the guardrail. Metal crunched. Then, silence. I leapt out, running toward the wreck, but when I got there, there was nothing. No car, no glass, just fog and cold, empty road. I stood there frozen until the CB hissed again from inside the cab. Then I heard it. Laughter. Not loud, not joyful. Just static. Laughing. It dragged across my nerves like a nail on glass. I climbed back into the truck, locked the doors, and kept driving. I didn't sleep that night either, not even when I stopped in Vegas. From then on, every time I see fog, I expect the voice to come back. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. But it's always watching, always waiting, and, the worst part? I think it's trying to teach me something. After Vegas, I requested a different rig. Told dispatch mine was pulling left, alignment shot. They gave me a newer model, clean interior, fresh CB. Different make, different wiring. Didn't matter. First, night out as I crossed into Arizona, the channel found me again. CB lit up on its own, even though I hadn't touched a dial. I'd been listening to music on my phone when it cut out mid-song, replaced by that familiar click hiss. My name echoed through the cab, followed by static and, God help me, a second. Name, Rick Mercer. I recognized it. Rick drove for the same company out of Colorado. We'd shared breakfast twice. Quiet guy, good driver. 2 days later, I saw his name on a Facebook group. Died in a wreck near the Wyoming border. They said he lost control on a dry road. No signs of braking. That's when I knew it wasn't just following me. It was picking off others. 2. I started searching trucker forums, the ones deep in the corners where people post anonymously. That's where I first saw it called the Dead Channel. Thread after thread, drivers talking about voices on Channel 29, the static that speaks, radios turning on by themselves. Most of the posts were old. None had replies. Like the authors, had simply vanished. But one thread caught my eye. A user with no profile picture had written, "If it starts calling you by name, it's already in your cab." That post was from 6 months ago. No updates, no follow-ups, just silence. After that, the voice changed. More erratic. Sometimes it spoke in bursts, naming towns, highways, dates. Once, in a diner in New Mexico, the old AM radio behind the counter switched on. Same static, same voice. Eddie. Seatbelt. A second later, a semi roared past outside. Too close, horn blaring. If I'd stepped out a moment earlier, I didn't eat. I didn't speak. I just left. It's not bound to one truck. Not even one machine, it follows me. And every time it speaks, someone else seems to die. The CB isn't just a tool anymore, it's a warning. Or a targeting system. I finally snapped. Parked the rig outside a no-name town in southern Nevada, and told dispatch I was done for the week. No explanation, no excuses, just silence. I found a rundown motel on a dirt road, cash only, no cameras, no amenities, the kind of place people disappear from and no one asks questions. I left my phone powered off, CB unplugged, truck locked. I didn't even turn on the lights in the room, just collapsed on the bed and tried to force myself into sleep. That's when the radio clicked on. I hadn't even noticed it when I came in. One of those ancient AM clock radios with yellowed plastic and a busted dial. It wasn't tuned to anything, just low static, but underneath it was breathing. Not mine, not mechanical. It was close, heavy, wet, like someone was standing over me just out of view, sucking air through torn lungs. I sat up, heart pounding in my ears. The static rose with me, growing louder. Then came the sound that still haunts me more than the voice, creaking leather, like someone shifting in a seat, but not in here, outside. I peeled back the curtain just an inch. My rig sat under the busted parking lot light. Empty, except the passenger seat. A figure was sitting there, perfectly still. No light hit the face, but I saw its shape. Tall, rigid, like it didn't know how to relax. Didn't need to. I grabbed. My coat, stumbled out of the room, heart jackhammering in my throat. I marched to the truck, yanked the door open. Nothing. No one. Just the CB crackling faintly on Channel 29, even though I'd pulled the fuse. Then the voice came back. Calm, confident, "You'll never ride alone again." I slammed the door shut, backed away, shaking. There's something out there that doesn't need a signal to follow you. Doesn't care about distance or logic or locked doors. It doesn't want to talk. It wants a seat. And now it's claimed. Mine. I'm back in the truck now. Same seat. Same road. Same static humming low like it's breathing through the vents. My eyes are red, skin feels thin, like even the air outside could cut me open. I haven't heard a real human voice in days. Not one I trust anyway. They still talk on the CB, truckers, dispatchers, late-night chatter, but something's off. The rhythm, the pauses. Like the words are being imitated, not spoken. Too clean, too practiced. Sometimes I hear my own voice responding before I even touch the mic. I don't know who's real anymore. Maybe no one is. Maybe whatever came through, that signal already bled into everything. I've thought about smashing the CB, ripping the whole thing out and dumping it in the desert, walking away from the truck, from the roads, from all of it. But just now, right as I reached for the switch, the channel clicked on. No static this time, just the voice, soft, measured, inhuman. It's your turn to speak. And for the first time, I felt it wasn't talking to me. It was talking through me. So if you're hearing this now, maybe it's already started. The road at night has its own kind of silence. It's not the peaceful kind you find sitting on a porch or walking through a quiet park. It's heavier, stretched thin over miles of asphalt, broken only by the hum of my engine and the occasional flicker of a dying streetlight. Most people never feel it, but when you spend enough years hauling freight across America, you start to notice that the silence out here isn't empty. It's watching. I've always said trucking is a lonely job, and I meant it. Mile after mile, with nothing but static on the CB and your own thoughts to keep you company. But sometimes that loneliness gets interrupted by something you can't explain. Shapes in the corner of your headlights, whispers in the static, shadows standing a little too close at the truck stops. A lot of drivers laugh those things off. Road fatigue, caffeine jitters, tricks of the eye. And maybe that's all it is for some. But I learned the hard way that not everything on the highway is meant to be brushed aside. What followed me didn't care if I believed in it or not. It was real, and it wanted me. That first night, I pulled into a rest stop just outside Amarillo. The lot was mostly empty, just two other rigs humming in the distance and a beat-up sedan parked under a flickering light. I killed the engine, and the sudden quiet pressed in like a blanket. Out here, that quiet always felt different, almost too still, like the world had gone on pause. I leaned back in my seat, rubbing my eyes, and that's when I caught it, in the side mirror. A figure. At first, I thought it was just another driver, stretching his legs, but no, this thing was wrong. It stood near the back of my trailer, too tall, too thin, and utterly motionless. The light from the pole caught just enough of its outline to make my stomach knot. I blinked, leaned forward, checked again. Still there. Perfectly still. My hand hovered over the door handle, but I hesitated. Something about the way it didn't move made my skin crawl. When I finally worked up the nerve and stepped outside, the night air hit me cold. Empty lot. No one there. Not a single footprint in the gravel. I laughed under my breath, trying to brush it off. Long hours, no sleep. It had to be my imagination. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been watching me. I climbed back into the cab, locked the door, and cranked the radio just to have some noise. That's when the CB crackled alive, a voice breaking through the static. Man's drawl, low and uneasy. Any of you boys see those shapes on the highway tonight? Another voice answered, chuckling nervously. Yeah, I thought I was losing it. Looked like someone standing dead center of the lane, but when I swerved, nothing there. The channel went quiet after that, just static and the hum of electricity. I sat frozen, staring into the mirror where that figure had been, every muscle tight. Fatigue or not, my gut told me this wasn't just in my head. Something was out there, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the biggest thing on the road. The further I drove into the night, the harder it was to ignore the feeling. It settled in my chest, a prickling unease like eyes pressing into the back of my skull. I kept telling myself it was nothing, just nerves, too much caffeine, not enough sleep. But every time I checked the mirrors, I expected to see something standing there, just beyond the reach of my headlights. Hours passed, and when I finally pulled over for a quick break, That's when I noticed it. My thermos had shifted. I always set it in the same cup holder, snug so it wouldn't rattle on the road. But now it was lying on the floor by the passenger seat, the lid unscrewed, coffee pooling on the mat. I hadn't touched it. The cab was locked. My stomach tightened as I reached down to pick it up, every hair on my arm standing on end. Back on the road, the sightings began. At first, it was just a glimpse, a silhouette standing on an overpass, watching as I roared beneath. Then again, crouched in a roadside ditch, head tilted toward my rig as if it had been waiting for me. Each time I convinced myself it was a trick of the dark, maybe a tree, maybe a shadow. But deep down, I knew better. Truckers tell stories. Every diner, every greasy spoon off the highway has its share of them. Old-timers talk about hitchhiker shadows, things that follow rigs for miles waiting for the driver to notice. Most guys laugh it off, a way to spook rookies on their first long haul. But remembering those tales now, with that shape haunting, the edges of my headlights, it didn't feel funny anymore. The cab had always been my safe space, my tiny fortress of steel and glass rolling through the endless night. But now, it felt compromised. Every creak of the trailer, every hiss of the brakes felt like something moving closer, creeping inside where it didn't belong. I drove with one hand on the wheel and the other gripping the door lock, telling myself over and over that I was still alone. But I didn't believe it. Not anymore. The storm rolled in fast, a wall of black clouds swallowing the stars above me. Rain hammered the windshield in sheets, and the wipers screeched back and forth, barely keeping up. Thunder cracked so hard it rattled the glass, and every flash of lightning carved open the sky just long enough to paint the road in white fire. I've driven through my share of storms, but this one felt different. Angry. Alive. I leaned forward, squinting into the blur of rain when something caught my eye. Not outside, but inside. For a split second, the passenger seat wasn't empty. In the reflection of the windshield, a figure sat there, tall and twisted, its head turned toward me. My heart lurched. I snapped my eyes to the seat beside me, but nothing was there. Just an old jacket thrown across the cushion. My radio hissed with static, voices warping in and out like they were underwater. Then the headlights flickered, plunging me into darkness before stuttering back to life. I gripped the wheel tighter, whispering to myself that it was just the storm, just bad wiring. But then, movement. Shapes darting across the road ahead, human figures sprinting through the downpour. I swerved hard, tires shrieking, trailer fishtailing dangerously. When I looked back, the road was empty. Panic clawed at my chest. Was I losing my mind? Hallucinating from exhaustion? Every explanation felt thinner than the glass separating me from that storm. Then the CB cracked alive, a voice I didn't recognize, thick with dread. "Driver, you've got something hanging off your trailer." My breath caught. I swallowed hard and keyed the mic, voice shaking. "Say again?" Static. Then the same voice, clearer now. "It's climbing. Right there, on your trailer door." I risked a glance in the mirror, rain streaking across the glass. At first, all I saw was the blur of my red taillights glowing in the storm. Then the lightning hit, and for one terrible instant the world lit up and I saw it. A shape clinging to the back of my rig, stretched long and unnatural, its limbs bent wrong, its head craned toward me like it knew I was looking. By the time I reached the way station, the storm had thinned to a cold drizzle. The place was dead, not a single rig in sight, just humming fluorescent lights casting pale cones across wet concrete. I pulled in slow, my trailer groaning behind me, and cut the engine. The silence was worse than the storm. I stepped out, boots sinking into the mud, and the night hit me with a damp chill. That's when I noticed them. Footprints. They weren't mine. Too wide, too long, and bent at angles that made no sense. They circled the trailer like something had been pacing, waiting, wearing a path into the wet earth. My chest tightened as I followed them around back, each step heavier than the last. Then I saw it, a handprint smeared across the trailer door. Not a normal hand, not even close. The fingers were stretched too far, curling like claws and pressed into the metal deep enough to leave grooves. My stomach turned. I forced myself. Closer, fingers trembling as I reached for the latch. That's when I heard it. Scratching. Slow at first, like nails dragging from the inside. My heart hammered against my ribs. Something was in there. Something that hadn't been loaded with my freight. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to climb back into the cab and never look back. But another part of me, the part that knew I was responsible for whatever was in that trailer, froze me in place. I had to know. I gripped the latch, sweat slicking my palm, and that's when it happened. The door slammed forward with a violent rattle, the whole trailer rocking on its wheels. The sound was deafening, metal straining against whatever pressed from the other side. The scratching turned to pounding, claws screeching as if the thing inside was desperate to break free. I stumbled back, mud splashing up my legs, and for the first time in my life on the road, I felt smaller than my own rig. Whatever was in there wasn't human. And if I opened that door, I wasn't sure I'd live long enough to regret it. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I bolted back into the cab, slammed the door, and fired the engine so hard the whole rig shuddered. My hands shook on the wheel as I tore out of that way station, mud spraying behind me, the trailer rattling like something inside was furious I'd left it trapped. I drove for hours without stopping, refusing to look in the mirrors, terrified of what I might see clinging there. When I finally reached the drop-off days later, the manager came out to check the load. The moment his eyes hit the back of the trailer, the color drained from his face. He didn't step closer, didn't even touch the latch. Instead, he shook his head, muttering under his breath, "Not again. This isn't the first time." Then he walked away, refusing to sign the paperwork. That was my last haul. I told myself I'd had enough of the road, that I was done with trucking for good. But the truth is, I left because I knew something out. There wasn't finished with me. Even now when I drive at night, I still catch myself checking the mirrors, praying I don't see it following me again. Most nights on the road blur together. The hum of tires, the steady green glow of the dashboard, the endless stretch of blacktop ahead. Trucking is about routine. The same routes, the same mile markers, the same pit stops to keep your eyes open, and your body moving. You learn to trust your GPS, your maps, your logbooks because out here, predictability keeps you alive. But sometimes the road doesn't care about your routine. Sometimes it takes you places you don't recognize, places that shouldn't even be there. That's what happened to me. And before you dismiss it as fatigue or another driver's ghost story, let me tell you, what I saw wasn't a mirage and it wasn't in my head. I've heard it said that the highways are veins pumping across America, connecting every corner. But if that's true, then maybe there are hidden veins too. The kind that lead you somewhere off the map, somewhere forgotten, or worse, remembered by things you don't want to meet. This isn't a story about a missed turn or a bad signal. It's about a town that doesn't exist on paper, a place I stumbled into one night on delivery. And I wish to God I hadn't. It started with the GPS. My usual route was blocked for construction, flashing signs forcing me onto an exit I'd never taken before. No big deal, I thought. These detours happen all the time. The screen recalculated, the robotic voice cheerfully telling me to follow a 2-lane road cutting deeper into the countryside. I expected a rough ride, cracked asphalt, maybe gravel, but this stretch was different. The pavement was smooth, almost freshly laid, too perfect for a road I'd never even heard mentioned at truck stops. The deeper I drove, the stranger it felt. Old billboards loomed out of the darkness, their paint cracked and faded, advertising products I knew hadn't existed in decades. Soda brands I'd only seen in museums, cigarettes long outlawed, even a smiling family pointing at a roadside. Amusement park that I knew had been torn down years before I was born. My headlights caught the images just long enough to make me question if they were real before the night swallowed them again. Then came the streetlights. They appeared where no streetlights should have been, out in the middle of farmland, evenly, spaced, humming faintly as they flickered against the dark. No houses nearby, no cross streets, just endless fields and a line of lights leading me forward like breadcrumbs. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe some forgotten county project, but the knot in my stomach said otherwise. After what felt like an hour with no other vehicles passing, I finally saw a sign up ahead. Rusted metal, leaning slightly. It's white, letters glowing in my high beams. It pointed toward a town with a name I'd never heard before, one that didn't ring any bell in all my years on the road. I slowed, frowning, repeating the name under my breath, but it meant nothing to me. Still, the GPS insisted this was the fastest way back to the main highway. Against my better judgment, I followed the sign. The road narrowed, the fields giving way to shadowy tree lines that pressed closer to the asphalt. And for the first time in years of trucking, I felt like I wasn't driving toward my destination. I was being drawn into someone else's. By the time I rolled into the town, the clock on my dash had just passed midnight. The first thing I noticed was the neon glow cutting through the darkness, bright signs buzzing like they belonged to a place alive with movement. A gas station lit up the corner, pumps humming faintly, the overhead lights flickering like moth wings. Across the street, a diner's sign sputtered red and blue, the word open flashing steady. A motel marquee promised clean rooms, low rates, its arrow blinking toward a gravel lot. But there was no one. Not a single car fueling up. Not a tired traveler checking into the motel. Not even a stray dog crossing the street. My rig's engine was the only sound as I pulled to a stop near the diner. The emptiness pressed down on me, too complete, too staged, as though everyone had left just seconds before I arrived. I killed the engine, stepped out, and the night hit me heavy. That's when I heard it. Music. Faint. Muffled. Drifting out. Of the diner. A jukebox playing some old tune. The kind of scratchy melody you'd expect in a roadside dive. I peered through the window. Booths were lined neatly, the counter polished, coffee cups stacked. But no cook, no waitress, no customers. And yet the jukebox played on. The air felt wrong, like I was standing on the set of a movie waiting for actors to walk in. Even the details were too perfect. Menus neatly placed, napkin holders full, ketchup bottles still half used. I started walking back toward the rig, telling myself I'd push through the night instead of stopping. That's when I saw the row of payphones along the diner's side wall. Payphones. Rusted but intact. Receivers dangling on curly cords. Out of habit, I picked one up. A dial tone. I froze. No way these things should still be live. I let the receiver fall back with a hollow clatter and turned to leave. But as I stepped past the next booth of phones, one of them rang. Loud, sharp, splitting the silence like a gunshot. I didn't answer. I just kept walking, my pulse hammering, certain now that I had no business being in that town. Curiosity got the better of me. I told myself I'd just take a quick look inside, prove to myself there was nothing strange going on, then get the hell out. The diner door creaked as I pushed it open, and the smell hit me. Grease, coffee, pancakes, fresh, like the place had just been cooking minutes earlier. My boots echoed against the tiled floor as I stepped in, and that's when I saw them. Plates still sat on tables, meals half-eaten, silverware resting mid-bite, a slice of pie with the fork sunk into its crust, a mug of coffee, steam curling faintly from the rim as if it had been poured seconds before I arrived. I stood frozen, scanning the room. No sound except for the jukebox playing its scratchy tune in the corner. Then I noticed the clock above the counter. Its second hand jerked backward. Tick, 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 rewinding time. My chest tightened. Through the wide front windows, a heavy fog had rolled in, swallowing the street outside. And in the fog, I saw movement. Silhouettes. Not one, but several. Slender shapes shifting just beyond the glass, pacing, waiting. Every time I tried to focus on them, they dissolved into the mist, but I knew I wasn't imagining it. Panic set in. I stumbled back out onto the pavement, desperate for the comfort of my cab. The second I climbed inside and locked the door, the CB crackled to life. At first it was static, then voices. Multiple voices overlapping, whispering, but clear enough to send a chill through my spine. He's back in his truck now. Just sat down, hands on the wheel. Watch his mirrors. My throat went dry. They were talking about me, describing me. Every move, every breath, as though they were right there watching. I slammed the CB off, but the chatter didn't stop. The radio glowed dead. Yet the voices kept coming, threading through the silence. I gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles whitened, staring out into the fog curling around my rig. Whatever this town was, it knew I was here. And worse, it was watching me in real time as if I was the show. I couldn't stay another second. I turned the key, the engine roared back to life, and I pressed hard on the accelerator. The diner faded behind me, swallowed by the fog, and I aimed for the edge of town. My GPS chirped confidently, telling me to turn left, then right, guiding me toward the highway. Relief started to creep in, until I recognized the glow ahead. The same gas station. I clenched the wheel, refusing to believe it. Maybe I'd taken a wrong turn. I circled around, tried another street, weaving through empty blocks lined with darkened houses. Minutes later, the lights appeared again, buzzing faintly, the same tilted sign welcoming me back. My GPS screen glitched, pixels stuttering until the entire map was nothing but a blank grid. No streets, no towns, no exit routes, just a blinking dot in the middle of empty space. My rig felt smaller by the second, the world pressing in, reshaping itself around me. That's when my headlights flickered, plunging the road into darkness before snapping back. And in that split second, I saw them. Figures lined along the roadside, tall and motionless, rows of faceless silhouettes staring as I passed. My throat went tight. They weren't wandering anymore, they were waiting. I floored it, the engine screaming as I barreled forward. But the faster I went, the stranger everything became. Signs twisted, letters bending into symbols I couldn't read. Buildings along the street shimmered like mirages, flickering in and out like broken film reels. Windows flashed open, then gone as though the entire town was collapsing under its own illusion. I tried not to blink, not to lose control, but it was like driving through a nightmare unraveling in real time. The air itself felt warped thicker, dragging at the truck, pulling me back toward the gas station no matter how hard I fought. Every instinct screamed at me to stop, but I couldn't. I knew if I stopped, those faceless shapes would finally step off the roadside. So I kept pushing, praying the road would eventually give way, that somewhere ahead there'd be a crack in this loop that I could break through. At some point, whether minutes or hours, I'll never know, the road finally broke. One blink I was staring down warped buildings and faceless watchers, and the next my headlights cut across a familiar stretch of highway. Just like that, the fog thinned, the town was gone, and only the hum of my engine remained. I slowed to a crawl, checking my mirrors, half expecting the silhouettes to still be there. But there was nothing. Just asphalt and silence. When I delivered the load a day later, I couldn't shake it. I pulled up maps, checked satellite images, even asked around. There was no sign of the town, no street, no exit, no name, like it had been wiped clean. At a truck stop a week later, I mentioned it casually to a few old-timers. Most shrugged it off, but one man went pale, staring into his coffee. "You found it, huh?" he muttered. "Best to keep driving if it finds you again." He wouldn't say more. I never took that route again. But sometimes, late at night, my GPS reroutes without warning. And when it does, it always tries to guide me back to that blank patch of road. It was just after midnight when I pulled into the rest stop, one of those back road pull-offs barely lit by flickering overhead lamps. I'd been driving 14 hours straight and needed to stretch, maybe grab a snack, nothing more. The place was dead quiet, one other rig parked at the far end, engine cold, no signs of life. I stepped down from the cab, gravel crunching beneath my boots when I heard it. Soft footsteps behind me. I turned, and there she was. A little girl no older than 8, barefoot, standing half in shadow near the vending machines. Her hair hung in stringy clumps and her eyes were wide, unblinking. Before I could say a word, she whispered, "Hi, Jake." I froze. That's my name, but I'd never seen her before in my life. I forced a nervous chuckle, asked if she was lost, if her parents were around. She took a step closer and said it again, this time using a nickname only my older sister ever called me when we were kids. One no one else knew. I didn't laugh after that. Something about the air changed, like the road had split behind me, and I'd crossed into something else entirely. I walked toward the lot, calling out for anyone. Parents, travelers, even a clerk inside the convenience shack, but it was empty. Not quiet, empty. No cars, no RVs, no headlights cutting through the trees. Just that eerie mechanical buzz from the rest stoplights. I turned back to the girl, still standing there, staring like she knew something I didn't. I asked her again, gently this time, if she was okay where her folks were. She didn't answer, just pointed a small finger toward the restroom building across the lot. We walked over together, her little bare feet padding on the concrete. That's when I saw them. Her footprints, they weren't fresh, they were only hers. They looped around my rig again and again like she'd been circling it for hours, waiting for me to step out. The door creaked open with a rusty moan, and I stepped inside first, the fluorescent light flickering overhead. The smell of bleach and rust filled the air. I checked the stalls, empty. As I turned to call back to her, a hand dryer on the far wall sputtered to life by itself. Then another. The nearest stall banged shut. I jumped. She was right behind me now, clutching my sleeve. Her grip was stronger than I expected. "Don't leave me again," she whispered. My mouth went dry. I don't know you," I said, stepping back. She tilted her head, sad eyes blinking slowly. "Yes, you do." I looked around one more time, trying to make sense of any of it. Still no parents. Still no sign of another soul anywhere. I checked my phone, one bar, no signal. I thought about calling the cops, but something about the way she looked at me. It didn't feel like a rescue mission. It felt like I was being tested. The stall door creaked again behind us and she flinched, pulling closer. "You left last time," she said, voice so soft I barely heard it. "Don't do it again." My stomach sank. I didn't know what the hell she meant, but I knew one thing. This night wasn't going to end the way it started. Back in the cab, I wrapped her in my spare hoodie and buckled her into the passenger seat. I didn't know what else to do. She wouldn't tell me her name, and I wasn't about to leave her there in the dark. I figured I'd hit the next truck stop with a signal and call it in. That's when my phone vibrated. One new Amber Alert. Bad reception made it crawl in pixel by pixel. I tapped it, heart already thudding. A girl, maybe 8 years old, reported, missing 3 states over. The photo was low-res, grainy, distorted by motion blur. Could have been her. Could have been any kid. I turned to ask, but she was already staring at me like she knew what I'd seen. She didn't look scared. Just waiting. Then the GPS glitched. The route line snapped, recalculated, then spun me in a loop. The voice froze mid-sentence. "Turn left in, the CB hissed to life next. "Don't stop at unlit rest areas." One voice muttered. Another chimed in, low and fast. "Decoys, little ones, lure you out, then they come from behind. Always happens around mile 223. The girl looked up at me, calm as ever. "You're going the wrong way, Jake." I flinched. That voice, that exact tone. It wasn't just my name, it was how my sister used to say it when we were kids. Sarcastic, warm, teasing. She died when I was 21. No one else alive says it like that. No one should have. "How do you know that name?" I asked, my throat closing. She smiled faintly. "You told me your route last time. You don't remember?" I didn't answer. "Couldn't. After the motel. With the red roof, you take the curve near the grain tower," she added. "Then you stop." The air inside the cab felt thinner suddenly, like I was climbing altitude. Though we hadn't moved, I scanned the mirrors, half expecting something to crawl out of the fog. Nothing. Just that damn hoodie rising and falling with her quiet breath beside me. That's when I realized this wasn't just a lost girl. This was a loop. And somehow, I was back in it. We pulled into a gas station an hour later, Nothing but a single pump island and a tiny booth that looked abandoned. I was going to try my luck with a stronger signal, maybe call someone. Anyone. That's when I saw the van. White. Beat up. Parked crooked near the far pump, engine idling. Two men stood outside, not filling up, just standing. One had his hands in his pockets, the other kept glancing at us and then away, like he was trying to look casual but had no clue how. The girl stiffened in her seat. I killed the engine. The man closest to us started walking over, slow and careful, lifting a hand, in a half-wave. "Hey there," he called, voice forced. "That your daughter?" I opened the door, stepped down between them and the truck. "She's not mine," I said flatly. He hesitated. "Well, we've been looking for her. She got away from us." "She say that's true?" I asked, not taking my eyes off him. Behind me, I heard her step down softly, her breath at my elbow. "They followed us last time," she whispered. "You forgot." The second guy piped up then. "Come on, sweetheart. It's time to go home." But when I asked them her name, neither of them answered. Not once. That was enough. I scooped her up and shoved her into the cab, locked the doors and slammed the truck into gear. The van didn't wait. As soon as my taillights lit, theirs flared to life behind me. I punched the accelerator and my trailer groaned as it lurched onto the road. My side mirror filled with white as the van closed the distance, engine snarling like a predator catching scent. That's when the CB crackled. "Black rig westbound near mile 243. You've got company." Another voice jumped in. "Keep her. Steady. Trooper station's 5 out. Don't stop for anything." I gripped the wheel tight, eyes burning from adrenaline. "Turn off at the way station road." A third voice cut through. "It loops around. Box them in. We're coming." The van surged again, closing in, high beams blinding my mirrors. But now I wasn't alone. The airwaves were alive with voices guiding me out. And whatever game this was, it was no longer theirs. To win, every turn I took, the van followed, hurting me, not chasing, like they knew where I'd end up. The road signs became less frequent. The street lights thinned. I took a left onto a detour that should have looped back to the interstate, only to find it barricaded. Backed out, turned again. Dead end. Each road narrowed until I was crawling past cracked pavement and skeletal trees. That's when the girl pointed. "There," she said, voice steady, finger aimed down a dirt service road barely wide enough for a pickup. "That's where they take us." I followed her gaze. A faded sign read, "State Way Station, closed." Beyond it, half a dozen rusted storage units squatted in a row like coffins in the dark. The van idled behind me, quiet now, waiting. "They kept the backpacks in the second one," she whispered. "The phones, too." Backpacks? My blood ran cold. I pulled forward, fishtailing across the gravel, then jackknifed the rig across the only exit lane, blocking the road completely. I grabbed the air horn and held it down, the blare cutting through the silence like a war cry. A minute later, flashing lights. Red, blue, sirens. I stumbled out of the cab just as 2 cruisers boxed in the van. Armed officers surrounded it, others storming the units. They pried the second one open. Inside were rows of kids' backpacks, each one numbered with a strip of tape. Beneath them, prepaid phones, some still lit. Shoes, too small for anyone past grade school. I turned to tell the girl we were safe, but her seat was empty. I ran to the other side, nothing. The cab door hadn't opened. I shouted her name, not that I ever knew it, but there was only the night and the flashing lights. An officer ran over, breathless. "You the one who called it in?" I blinked. "No. My phone's been dead since the gas station." He looked confused. "We got a call. Female voice. Said to find the backpacks. Said to follow the black rig." I stared at him, heart thudding. She hadn't come with me this time. She'd led me. Guided me back to finish something I'd forgotten, or maybe failed to stop before. Either way, she was gone. They arrested both men that night. Turns out they'd been on the radar for months, suspected of running kids through back roads under the radar. But without solid evidence, there hadn't been a move. until the storage unit opened, until the girl led me there. I told the cops everything, or tried to. They nodded politely, but none of them really reacted, until one of them asked, "So, the girl, she used your phone to call?" I told him again my phone had been dead since that rest stop. He frowned. "Well, the call came from your number. Female voice, young, told us where to go, told us to look inside the second unit. They checked the logs, the dash cam, everything. No footage of her climbing out. No prints in the cab except mine. It was like she'd never been there. I quit that route the next week, but sometimes when I'm out on the road late and my rig hums just a little too quiet, my GPS reroutes without warning. It always tries to send me back, to that way station. And when I pull over for the night, I swear I hear soft footsteps on the catwalk behind the cab, like small shoes. Just waiting." Midnight runs are usually quiet. Just me, the hum of the engine, and hundreds of miles of open highway. I've done this route more times than I can count. Same loading dock, same delivery point, same sealed trailer. Nothing strange, nothing special. But that night was different. I was halfway through Nebraska, nothing but darkness ahead and a storm brewing behind, when I caught something strange in my side mirror. Just a flicker at first. Movement. Inside the trailer. I blinked. Looked again. The trailer was sealed, locked by the warehouse supervisor himself. I watched him slap the tag on. Paperwork matched. Everything by the book. But there it was again. Movement, not shadows, not light tricks. Something shifting inside. I leaned forward, squinting into the mirror. For a split second, I thought I saw a shape. A figure, pressed against the translucent panel of the trailer wall. Not for long. Just long enough for my stomach to tighten. It vanished before I could register what it looked like. But I knew one thing for sure. No one was supposed to be back there. And the second I realized that, the air in the cab turned cold, like whatever was inside had just noticed me too. I stopped for fuel a little after 1 a.m. One of those rural stations, surrounded by nothing but scrub grass and distant fence posts. No other trucks, no attendants outside. Just the cold rattle of the pump and the buzz of insects circling the floodlights. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen in the mirror. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe I was just tired. But I had to check. I walked around back, crunching gravel beneath my boots. The trailer stood there like always, still locked, the seal tag hanging intact, nothing broken, nothing tampered with. But then I noticed it, a smear on the inside wall, right behind the translucent plastic window in the upper corner of the trailer door. Condensation, like breath on a mirror. I stared at it, unmoving. The trailer was supposed to be ambient freight, dry goods, wrapped pallets, no refrigeration, no reason for moisture, no reason for breath. I leaned closer, heart thudding. That's when I heard it. Thud. Soft, dull, like a knee or elbow hitting a wall just once. I stepped back, looked around the lot, still empty. No cars, no people, just me and that locked trailer. My radio crackled, cutting through the silence. Dispatch. Jake, you're behind. We need you in Omaha by 5:30. No long stops. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the mic. I could report it, say I needed to open the trailer and inspect. But I knew what they'd say. If the seal's unbroken and the freight's undisturbed, drive. Schedules don't care about gut feelings. I took one more glance at the condensation. It had already started to fade, like it had never been there. Maybe I was tired. Maybe it was some trick of the air, or engine heat, or road grime. Still, as I climbed back into the cab, I locked the doors without thinking and scanned the mirrors twice before pulling away. And even as the tires rumbled back onto the highway, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside that trailer had been listening. Worse than that, I think it knew I almost opened the door, and I think it didn't want me to. An hour later, the road stretched out like ribbon, black and endless. The only light came from my headlights and the faint blue glow of the dashboard. It should have been peaceful. Just me, the rig, and the open dark. But I couldn't relax. That tight feeling in my chest Hadn't left since the stop. And then I heard it. Skirk, just faint enough to question, like metal dragging against metal. I turned down the radio, leaned toward the back wall of the cab. Nothing. Silence. I eased up on the gas. The trailer creaked under its own weight, but then came another sound. Tap, 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 rhythmic, not random, not mechanical, like fingers or claws, scratching just beneath the surface. I flipped the CB to channel 19, hoping to distract myself. That's when the static kicked in. Loud, sharp, like it was being pushed through a broken speaker. Then, amid the fuzz, came a voice. "Check. Your freight." I sat up. Not supposed to be there. I grabbed the mic, pressed the button. "Say again? Who is this?" Silence. Another burst of static, then, behind the plastic, my skin went ice cold. I flicked the interior lights on, scanned the mirrors. Nothing. Just the long, empty road behind me. I called dispatch. "Something's not right," I said. "I'm hearing noises in the trailer. I think someone might have stowed away." A pause. Then, "Trailer's sealed, Jake. Manifest shows 0 access since loading. We GPS tagged it, no break-ins, it's all secure." "I'm telling you, I'm hearing." "Keep driving." They cut in. "You stop now, you'll miss your window." The line went dead. I gripped the wheel with both hands, knuckles white. The scratching started again, closer this time. It moved along the left side wall, then paused. Then the sound of a slow drag, like something long and sharp tracing a single line across the inner metal. That's when I realized it wasn't just sound, it was pacing me, moving when I moved, stopping when I slowed. Whatever was in that trailer wasn't cargo. It was something else. And now I knew. It wasn't trapped. It was waiting. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to see for myself. No more guessing. No more static-filled voices. Just answers. I pulled into a rest area just off I-80. A bright one, thank God. Overhead lights buzzed like wasps, casting long beams across the pavement. 2 empty semis were parked at the far end, but no drivers in sight. I killed the engine and stepped out. The night was dead quiet. I walked slowly to the back of the trailer, listening with every step. No tapping, no scraping, just the creak of cooling metal. The lock seal was still intact, untouched. But my hands were shaking as I clipped the tag and unlatched the doors. They swung open with a groan. Just pallets. Shrink-wrapped, stacked, unmoving. The kind of freight I'd seen 1,000 times. But the air, God, the air inside was warm, like body heat had been trapped inside. Like someone had just been breathing in there. Then something moved. Fast, low. A shape darted between the last 2 stacks of boxes. I grabbed the flashlight from the side pocket of my cab, flicked it on and climbed inside. "Hey!" I called out, voice echoing off metal. "Who's back here?" No answer. Just silence. I moved between the stacks, swinging the light. Nothing. Then behind me, slam, the trailer door. It had shut. I ran to it, heart pounding, and tried the handle. Locked. From the outside. Then the trailer moved. A jolt. Then a rocking, back and forth like something massive had slammed into it. I stumbled, hands sliding against the walls, flashlight beam jumping like crazy. The pallets rattled. The air felt thicker, hotter. It rocked again, harder. A loud bang from the ceiling. I screamed, pounding on the door, kicking it, yelling for anyone, anything to hear me. And then, nothing. It stopped. Silence. The latch clicked. The door creaked open by itself. Cold air rushed in like a gasp. I fell out onto the pavement, drenched in sweat, lungs heaving. I scrambled into the cab and pulled up the dashcam footage. I scrolled back to the moment the doors closed. Nothing. No movement, no figure, not even me. I got back on the road, shaking so badly I could barely shift gears. I didn't even care about the schedule anymore. I just wanted this run over and done. Whatever was in that trailer, whatever had locked me in, was beyond anything I could explain. But I couldn't stop. Every time I glanced at the side mirror, My pulse kicked. I kept seeing a blur, a shadow. At first I told myself it was the trailer's reflection warping from highway lights. But then I saw it, clear as day, a face, pale, too smooth, almost reflective, watching me. From inside the trailer's front wall. The problem? That trailer had no window, nothing to see through. I stared so long I started drifting lanes. Snapped myself back just in time. And then my engine died, out of nowhere. No warning, no sputter, just gone. The cab went dark, my lights cut. I coasted onto a narrow bridge, dead in the middle of nowhere. No phone signal, no CB, just silence. Then, scratch. It came from behind the cab, slow, deliberate. Fingernails or claws dragging down the steel. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Something pressed against the back wall. A push, like it wanted in. The door latch to the sleeper clicked once. My breath froze. It didn't want to be seen. It had avoided the camera. It stayed hidden in mirrors, but it wanted to reach me. The scratching stopped. Then a whisper, not a sound, more like a pressure in my ear. You looked. I grabbed the wheel like it could save me. Whispered prayers I hadn't said in years. After what felt like a lifetime, the dashboard lights flickered back. The engine roared to life like nothing had ever happened. I didn't question it. I floored it. Tires screaming, trailer rattling like it weighed 1,000 pounds more than before. I didn't stop again, not for gas, not for food, not for anything. I drove until the sun started to rise, and even then, I didn't feel safe. Because in that last stretch of night, I realized something. Whatever had been hiding back there wasn't hiding anymore. I rolled into the delivery site just after dawn. The sky was washed in gray and my hands hadn't stopped shaking since the bridge. I must have looked like hell. Bloodshot eyes, white-knuckled grip, sweat soaked into my shirt. The yard worker flagged me down and waved me into the dock. Routine, mechanical, like nothing had happened. They opened the trailer and began unloading. I stood nearby, arms crossed tight, watching like a man waiting for a bomb to go off. "Hey," one of the guys called out. "You notice this?" He pointed to one of the crates, overturned, splintered at the edges. Not crushed, not dropped, cracked open. From the inside. But the freight was all there. All accounted for. Manifest matched. No one believed me. I told dispatch. Showed them the cam footage. They scrubbed through, expressionless. Nothing. Until I paused it, frame by frame. There in the side mirror, just above my shoulder, my reflection and another face. Pale, smiling. Wrong, I left trucking that week. But some nights when I park my car too long in the dark, I swear I hear it again. That slow, deliberate tapping on the back window. Like something wants back in. I've been behind the wheel for over 2 decades, crossed every state line in the lower 48, and seen some things on these roads that'd give most people a reason to hang up their keys. But nothing, and I mean nothing, comes close to what happened that night in the Appalachians. It was supposed to be a routine delivery, a straight shot through Virginia with a few twists and turns through the mountain passes. But I took a route that don't show up on most maps. Some folks call it a ghost pass, others just don't talk about it. Thing is, no GPS works out there. Cell towers drop dead the minute you make that final turn off the main highway. I'd heard whispers over truck stop coffee. Stories passed between weathered drivers with more miles behind them than ahead. They'd say things like, "Watch your mirrors out there," or, "If your CB crackles when it shouldn't, keep driving." Never believed in tall tales. But what I saw, what I felt, on that mountain road still keeps me up some nights. I wasn't alone out there. And whatever was out there with me. It didn't want me to leave. I was making good time until I hit the blinking signs and flashing lights. Rock slide ahead, road closed. A line of brake lights stretched down the highway like a ribbon of red. Dispatch hadn't warned me about this. I pulled off onto the shoulder and waited, fiddling with my GPS. It kept rerouting, spinning its digital wheels trying to find a way around. The map would blink, shift, then land right back on the same dead-end loop. No signal. Figures. Flicked on the CB even though I hadn't used it in years. Static mostly, until a voice broke through. Crackly, low, like someone sitting in a basement full of cobwebs. "You stuck at the 2x20 cutoff?" it asked. I didn't answer at first. "There's a way around, old road. Locals only. Ain't on your maps." "How do I get there?" I asked against every instinct. "Backtrack 3 miles. Dirt road on the right. No name. Watch the trees." Before I could respond, silence. I should have turned back. But deadlines are deadlines, and I've bent rules before. I found the road just where he said, half hidden, narrow as hell, with no streetlight in sight. Gravel crackled under my tires as I eased in, the sun already bleeding behind the peaks. The deeper I drove, the more unnatural it felt. The trees on either side crept closer, branches knotted like arthritic fingers overhead. Fog began to pour in, not misty, gentle fog, but dense, milky stuff that moved like it had a mind of its own. I rolled the window down a crack, hoping to feel the cool bite of mountain air, but instead I was hit with the scent of wet soil and something else. Something metallic, like old blood. My radio died first, then my phone. Just cold black screens. Kept driving. That's when I saw it. Something darted between the trees just at the edge of my headlights. I slammed the brakes. It was tall, impossibly thin, not a deer, not a bear. And it moved with this twitchy urgency, like it was studying me but didn't want to be seen. I sat there for a beat too long. Then I pressed the gas and kept going, pretending it wasn't real. But deep down, I knew I wasn't alone anymore. About 30 minutes down that godforsaken pass, I saw a clearing up ahead, just enough to pull over. My knuckles were stiff from gripping the wheel, my eyes burning from staring into fog that never seemed to break. I needed a second to breathe, to shake the growing tension crawling up my spine. So I eased the rig into what looked like an old rest stop. The concrete was cracked and uneven, littered with leaves and what might have been the remains of a shredded tire. A vending machine stood crooked under a flickering lamppost, its glass smashed, insides gutted. No other trucks, no cars, no sounds. Aside from the soft pop of my engine cooling, I stepped out, stretched, and that's when I heard it. Faint, just above the wind. Whispering. Not words exactly, but tones. 2 voices, maybe more, hissing back and forth like they were arguing. I froze, looked around. Trees, just trees. Probably raccoons, I told myself. Maybe wind. But as I walked toward the vending machine, my boots scuffed something deep in the pavement. I looked down. Gouge marks. Not tire skids, not scraped metal. These were long, jagged, uneven, like something had clawed at the asphalt. And they were fresh. Bits of concrete still crumbled at the edges. That cold pressure returned, like I was being watched. I turned, ready to get back in the truck when my heart damn near exploded. Someone was in the cab. A man. He sat perfectly still in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. His clothes were a torn uniform, maybe a ranger or trucker, but coated in mud, grime, dried streaks of something. Darker. His skin was pale, too pale, and his eyes, they didn't blink. Just glassy. Fixed. I shouted, more from instinct than courage. "Hey, what the hell?" And in the blink of an eye, he was gone. No door slam, no footsteps, just gone. I scrambled, up into the cab, locking the doors even though it felt ridiculous. My heart was hammering so loud I almost missed the sound behind it. Crick! The CB radio. The same dead unit I'd tossed under the dash years ago. It crackled, then a voice broke through, low, raspy, slow. "You were warned, son." I didn't. Stop again. Whatever that thing was back in the cab, it rattled me deep. I told myself I was just tired, maybe too much caffeine and highway noise messing with my head. But the truth? I was scared in a way I hadn't felt since I was a kid, paralyzed but moving. The road narrowed even more as I kept going. The fog thickened until it wasn't just covering the road, it was moving through it. Not drifting like fog should, but coiling and splitting, like it was alive. I rolled the window down just to make sure there was still air out there. The silence felt wrong. It didn't sound like the mountains anymore, it didn't sound like anywhere. That's when I heard the footsteps, above me, on the roof of the cab. Steady, deliberate pacing, heel-to-toe thuds. I swerved, thinking maybe a branch had fallen, but no, something was up there. I floored it, hoping to shake it off, but the footsteps only got faster. I checked the side mirror, and that's when I saw it. Something running alongside the trailer. Not a man, not an animal, just a shape. Long limbs, no real face, pale like fog but darker at the edges. It was fast, too fast. I slammed the brakes and spun the wheel hard, trying to turn around. Only, the road behind me was gone. Just thick trees. No gravel. No tire tracks. The GPS, long dead, blinked back to life for half a second. The screen was cracked, but I could still read it. No return. My chest tightened. My vision blurred. Shapes began, crawling across the inside of my windshield, like frost but moving, twitching, crawling toward me. I wiped at them, frantic. Nothing there. My own reflection started to warp. My face stretched, distorted, like the glass was trying to remember what I looked like. I hit the horn, flashed my brights, screamed out the window like a lunatic, then light ahead. Headlights. Another truck. Relief hit me like a shot of whiskey. I floored it, closing the gap. Finally, someone else out here. But as I got closer, I saw the rig was just like mine. Same make, same trailer number, same faded bumper sticker. From a rest stop in Texas. I wasn't following someone, I was chasing myself. I don't know how long I followed that other truck. 10 minutes, an hour, maybe more. Time didn't feel right anymore. The fog pulsed around me like a living thing, and the road just kept stretching. Finally, I saw a break in the trees. A clearing, wide enough to pull over and breathe again. But there were no lights. No signs, just open space. I rolled in slow. At first, it looked empty. Then the shapes emerged. Truck cabs, buried halfway into the ground like forgotten gravestones. Rusted out, twisted frames, windows shattered. Some had vines crawling through the grills. Others were crushed inward like something big had stepped on them. There were no plates, no logos, just ghosts of vehicles left to rot. I killed the engine and sat there staring. That's when I heard it. Breathing, not mine, behind me, in the cab. It was slow, wet, human, like someone exhaling through cracked lips right behind my head. My skin turned to ice. I turned fast, seat empty. But the passenger seat belt was buckled. I didn't buckle it. Before I could move, the CB lit up again. Kirk. The voice that came through was mine, twisted, slurred, like it was trying to mimic me. Don't stop. Don't sleep. Don't talk to them. I couldn't breathe. Those weren't just words. They were warnings, rules, and I broke the first one. I thought back to something an old-timer told me in a Tennessee truck stop years ago. We were swapping weird road stories and he leaned in, voice low. "You ever get offered the pass?" He asked. "What pass?" "The one that don't exist, don't take it. It eats men, keeps them in circles, makes them forget, makes them repeat." I'd laughed then, brushed it off. But now I was starting to understand. This place wasn't just haunted. It was alive, feeding on the lost, drawing them deeper every time they tried to escape. It showed you things, used your own voice, made you question what was real. And the worst part? I didn't know if I'd just arrived, or if I'd been driving this loop for years. I don't remember blacking out. One moment I was gripping the wheel, fog curling in through the vents, the CB whispering warnings in my own voice. And the next, sunlight was streaming through the windshield. I was parked, engine off, at a regular truck stop just outside Roanoke. People bustled around me, like it was any other morning. Everything looked normal. My GPS was working again. My phone had full bars. I checked my logbook. No missed turns, no time unaccounted for. According to the logs, I'd never left the highway. Never even found that detour. But something felt wrong. The tank was almost full. I'd driven close to 200 miles and barely used any fuel. That doesn't happen. Then I saw it. A small note sitting on the dash. Yellowed, curled at the edges. Just 4 words, scrawled in red ink. You were warned. My mouth went dry. I looked up, into the mirror, and for a split second I didn't recognize the eyes staring back. They were mine, but colder. Slower. Like they'd seen something I hadn't caught up to yet. I got out of there fast. But I still check the mirrors too long. Sometimes, and every so often, I hear breathing. I've done overnight hauls my whole life. Slept in more cabs than beds, crossed more state lines than I can count. But what happened last Thursday, I still can't explain. I woke up behind the wheel, engine humming low, parked in some fog-drenched clearing I didn't recognize. No highway, no road, just trees, silent and still, like they were waiting for something. My hands were still on the wheel. My foot rested on the brake. It was like I'd never stopped driving. But I had no memory of getting there. I checked the dash. The clock said 6:12 a.m. My logbook showed I'd been driving for nearly 4 hours straight. That's impossible. I remember pulling off around 2 for a quick rest. I hadn't even finished my coffee. Yet somehow, I'd covered miles of distance in total silence and complete darkness. Not mentally. Literally. Nothing but blank space in my mind. A void. I thought maybe I'd blacked out. Maybe exhaustion had finally caught up with me. But my fuel gauge had dropped. My tires were warm. And the weirdest part? The GPS didn't show any road at all. Just a blinking dot in the middle of nowhere. Something had taken over, and I wasn't sure it was just me. It started like any other overnight haul, just me, my rig, and a long stretch of Kentucky 2-lane. I passed mile marker 122 a little after midnight. I remember because I glanced at the clock and did that mental math every trucker does. If I kept a steady pace, I'd make my drop with time to spare. The night was quiet, the kind of quiet that creeps in and sits heavy on your shoulders. No cars, no distant headlights, just my own beams carving through the dark. Then I saw the billboard, half collapsed, leaning off the right shoulder, advertising a barbecue joint that probably hadn't served a plate in decades. Smoky Joe's, next exit. I gave it a passing glance and kept rolling. But 5 minutes later, there it was again. Same tilt, same torn edge. At first I thought I'd zoned out, missed a turn. I checked the GPS, it was stuck buffering. The screen pulsed, trying to load a route, then blinked back to the same mile marker I'd already passed. No exits, no towns. No sign of Smoky Joe's. The road had emptied out completely, like the world forgot this stretch existed. Eventually I pulled over, figuring a quick break would clear my head. I poured some coffee from the thermos, leaned back, closed my eyes for just a minute. When I opened them, the coffee was cold in my lap. The sun was threatening the horizon, and my odometer read 80 miles further than it should have. I hadn't driven those miles, not consciously. My seat was still in the upright position, my hands smudged like I'd gripped the wheel the whole way. The fuel had burned off exactly what it should have for that distance. But I remembered nothing. No road, no trees, no radio chatter. Just that first billboard, and then darkness. It didn't feel like sleep. It felt like something had borrowed me, used me, and then dropped me back behind the wheel before I noticed I was gone. Back at the next truck stop, I pulled in under buzzing floodlights and shut off the engine, heart still beating too fast. I needed answers. I opened my logbook, digital, synced automatically, and there it was. 4 hours of steady driving logged like clockwork. Start to finish. But I didn't remember a single second of it. Fuel level matched the miles. Tires warm to the touch. Brake dust clung to the hubcaps like any normal run. Except I wasn't behind the wheel. Not really. I chalked it up to a blackout, stress, lack of sleep. But that theory cracked the moment the CB radio came alive. I hadn't used that thing in years. It was dusty, wires half disconnected, no antenna worth a damn. But as I sat there trying to slow my breathing, it crackled, then hissed. Then clear as anything, I heard it, James. My name. Drawn out. Low. My blood ran cold. Then came the next part. You're not supposed to be here. The voice wasn't mine, but it felt close. Like someone trying to sound like me and failing just slightly, off in the mouth, hollow in the chest. I jumped out of the cab, walked a full circle around the rig, flashlight in hand. No one, no cars, just the wind pushing against the diesel tanks, soft and constant. I got back inside and did the one thing I never thought I'd need to. I checked the dash cam footage. My rig auto records every trip. There had to be something. First 2 hours? Normal. Empty road, occasional reflector flash. Then came static, long stretches of it, just black and white noise. I scrubbed forward, watching that fuzz blur past, until something appeared. A single frame. Me standing outside the truck, driver's door wide open, but the camera angle showed deep woods behind me. Pine trees, dense and close, no road in sight. I wasn't moving, just standing there, like I was waiting for something. Then the feed went dead. I stared at that frozen image of myself surrounded by trees that don't exist near I-75. That's when I realized I hadn't just lost time. Something had taken me somewhere else. I couldn't let it go. I don't know if it was fear or pride or just plain stubbornness, but I needed to know where those 4 hours went. So the next morning I fueled up, reloaded the log data, and tried to follow the route back. The GPS showed the same stretch I supposedly drove, cutting through a patch of rural back roads near Elk Ridge, Kentucky. Nothing unusual on the map, just a winding 2-lane curve surrounded by forest. I figured if I could get eyes on the spot, maybe it'd jog something loose. But as I followed the pin, something felt off. The roads didn't line up. A right turn I was supposed to make didn't exist, just a dead end into a field of dense trees. Another road listed on the map had been swallowed by overgrowth, weeds waist high, no signs, no tire tracks. It was like the land itself had pushed the roads out. Finally, I reached the exact coordinates from the log. According to my system, I should have been smack in the middle of a long, narrow pass, but there was nothing. Just thick, unbroken forest. No gravel, no clearing. No evidence a vehicle had ever passed through. I sat there staring into the woods, feeling a pressure I couldn't explain. Not fear exactly, something older than fear. Like the trees were watching. I backtracked and found a small gas station near the county line. A dusty place with flickering lights and a tired old guy behind the counter. I asked him if that old route through Elk Ridge was still active. He didn't answer right away. Just stared at me. Then I showed him the log on my tablet. The color drained from his face. You went there? I nodded, confused. According to the system, yeah. Why? He shook his head slowly. That road's been closed for years. Washed out in '08. Took 3 cars with it. State never rebuilt it. What happened to the cars, I asked. He didn't answer. Just muttered, after the accident, things changed out there. Then he looked me dead in the eye and said, whatever road you drove, it wasn't ours. I left that place fast, but I couldn't shake the feeling I'd crossed into something I wasn't supposed to. After leaving the gas station, I headed north, dead silent the whole ride. I couldn't stop thinking about what that old man said. If I didn't drive a real road, then where the hell was I for 4 hours? What had I passed through? What had passed through me? I pulled over just before dark, parked along a quiet stretch off Route 40. I figured I'd get a few hours of rest before I completely lost my grip on reality. I climbed into the sleeper cab, kicked off my boots, and froze. There were muddy footprints on the floor. Not mine, different tread, smaller, barefoot. They tracked from the sleeper door to the side of the bed, then vanished. The mattress was damp, like someone had been lying there. And the worst part, the passenger seatbelt was buckled. I hadn't had a passenger since 2016. I backed out of the cab like it might explode, scanning the dark tree line beyond the road. Nothing, not a sound. But inside the rig, it didn't feel still anymore. It felt alive. That night I sat in, the driver's seat too wired to sleep, engine running just to feel something familiar. Then the cabin shifted, not like wind or suspension, like breathing. The walls expanded and contracted. The air got thick. In the rearview mirror, I saw a shape, no features, just a dark figure hunched and still watching me from behind the passenger seat. I turned my head. Nothing there, just the belt, still clicked into place. Kark. The CB flared up again. You brought it back. That voice again. Mine, but not hollow. Echoing from somewhere beneath my skin, I slammed the volume knob and yanked the wires from the back, but the speaker kept buzzing low and deep like a growl trying to form words. I felt cold breath on my neck, but there was no one behind me. Whatever happened that night, I lost time. It wasn't just a blackout. It was space being filled. I used to think I was alone on that road, that I'd simply drifted through a bad patch of memory, but now I think I wasn't the one driving, and whatever was, might still be here. I filed the report the next morning, log discrepancies, missing time, possible tampering. I sent over screenshots, dashcam references, coordinates. I expected confusion, maybe concern, but when they got back to me, all they said was, "There's no record of that route." My logs were gone. The system showed a clean haul, uninterrupted. No errors, no missing hours. Even worse, my dashcam. Gone. Memory wiped, like it had never recorded a second of the trip. I parked the rig in my driveway and let it sit, a full week. I couldn't bring myself to touch the wheel, let alone get back on the road. Every night I'd check the cab. Still, silent, until night 7. My phone rang around 2 a.m. Neighbor's voice shaky. "Hey, is your truck supposed to be running?" I threw on boots and ran outside. The engine was on, headlights glowing dim through the mist. I hadn't started it. I was the only one with keys. I opened the door, passenger seatbelt, buckled, and on the inside of the windshield, 5 smeared fingerprints dragging downward from the glass. No one believes me, but I know what I saw, whatever drove those missing hours. It's still with me and it wants another ride.